Item number 8.
Item 8, resolution in defense of Second Amendment rights. Peggy Littleton, Commissioner, Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. I would move approval of the following resolution in defense of the Second Amendment rights. And it's so exciting that we get to do this today. Whereas the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution provides that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And whereas the right to arms and self-defense is recognized in state constitutions, and whereas the natural and unalienable, or unalienable, as the constitutional scholars would say, unalienable right to self-defense is well established in the writings of many philosophers and authors since ancient times of Greece and Rome. And whereas for centuries tyrants have recognized that a disarmed population is readily dominated, and whereas the Second Amendment protects the rights of self-defense, defense of others, and defense of the nation, and assumes the rights to hunting and sport shooting. And whereas it is estimated that more than 70 million people, representing more than half of the households in America, have chosen to lawfully exercise the right to bear arms and defend themselves and their families. And whereas many gun control laws implicitly assume the guilt of lawful and responsible firearm orders with little effect on the ability of criminals to obtain firearms and to use them unlawfully. And whereas the vast majority of all lawfully owned firearms in America are not used in crime, and whereas statistically, lawful gun owners are less likely to break the law than the average member of the public, and whereas in 2008, the United States Supreme Court, the District of Columbia versus Heller, ruled that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right rather than a collective, the right to keep and bear arms. And in 2010, in McDonald versus the City of Chicago, the Supreme Court further opined that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms protected by the Second Amendment is incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and applies to states. And whereas studies by the National Academies of Science and Centers for Disease Control have found no persuasive evidence that gun control laws actually reduce crime, and whereas today, Americans are safer from violent crime than they have been at any time since the mid-1960s. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County of El Paso, State of Colorado, will uphold the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, and we will act in conformity with our sworn duties as duly elected officials charged with the public trust, and will, in conjunction with prior decisions by the United States Supreme Court, not enforce any statutes, edicts, presidential directives, or other regulations and proclamations which conflict and are expressly preempted by the U.S. Supreme Court's rulings. The Board of El Paso County Commissioners strongly urges the United States Senate to reject international treaties that would infringe upon the Second Amendment rights of American citizens, including the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, the Inter-American Convention Against Illicit Manufacturing of and Trafficking in Firearms, or the UN Program of Action, and that neither the United States Congress nor the General Assembly of the State of Colorado should entertain consideration of any new legislation that would infringe upon the constitutionally protected rights under the Second Amendment through any means, including additional restrictions on lawful firearms and accessories, or on the possession, use, sale, or transfer of legitimately owned firearms. And be it further resolved that the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners calls upon the United States Congress and the Colorado General Assembly to recognize the multitudes of existing laws related to the manufacture, sale, and possession of firearms, and acknowledge that in order to combat gun violence, the county and the country must enforce existing laws and more effectively punish and deter those who commit these crimes. Done this 22nd day of January 2013 at Colorado Springs, Colorado, the Board of County Commissioners, El Paso County, Colorado, Dennis Heisey, Chair, Amy Lathan, Vice Chair, Sally Clark, Darrell Glenn, and Peggy Littleton, members. Attested to by Wayne W. Williams, County Clerk and Recorder.
Second.
Thank you. I suspect most of this crowd is here for this item.
For this item. So, Mr. Chair, if I could speak to just one of the words, and this is something that I think needs to be explained because I don't think many of us learn it in school about the difference between inalienable and unalienable. And there is a huge difference between the two, and according to constitutional scholars, it is pronounced unalienable. A lien is something that, when you're aliened, it's incapable of being sold or transferred. And so when something is aliened or unalienable, it's incapable of being aliened to anyone, including a man who holds something unalienable. So it's impossible for any individual to sell, transfer, or other dispose of an unalienable right. It is impossible for you to take one of my unalienable rights, and likewise impossible for me to even voluntarily surrender, transfer, or give up an unalienable right. Once I have something unalienable, it's impossible for me to get rid of it. It would be easier for me to give up the color of my eyes or my heart than to give up that which is unalienable. So the difference between that, and if you'll look in our Constitution of the United States, it does say that we have and are endowed with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have comment. Do you want to go to the audience first, or?
Well, I was going to do the commissioners here. I knew you had something to go up on the
I'm
overhead.
going to run around to the overhead.
Okay.
All right, if I can have the overhead, please. There are a lot of ways to say what we are trying to express here and protect. And I'm going to allow a few of these that are some of my favorites to speak for themselves. Some of you here have probably seen some of these already, but they really point out some very important things that we should be looking at. Just look at the difference. Here's a little bit of liberal logic in terms of what we're dealing with here on this hysteria about gun control. Look at the gun shows, look at the schools, and the chances of someone being harmed in a mass shooting. And yet, the liberal logic would tell you that we should have fewer guns. This is pure insanity. Here's another thing. We like to have, a lot of folks out there like to use the word assault because it's very sensational. So here is an assault vehicle. It's black, scary looking, and was clearly designed to kill innocent people by enabling the driver to exceed the legal speed limit by over 100 miles per hour. 32,367 people were killed on the roadways in 2011. Americans don't need 470 horsepower. Ban them. That's a little more logic for you there. Here's another one. Timothy McVeigh did not use a gun. He killed 168 innocent people. He killed 19 children under the age of 6. He injured over 680 innocent people. You can still buy fertilizer. You can still buy racing fuel. You can still rent box trucks, and murderers will murder with or without a gun. Guns are not the problem. And finally, it's important to remember that 84,999,987 firearm owners killed no one yesterday. I think it's very important for us to keep these kinds of things in mind and to fight for the truth, and that is that there is an element out there that wants the citizens to be unarmed, and that is not going to save anyone except government power.
Folks, I do appreciate your enthusiasm, but I would ask that you not clap or have outburst. Anything else from the commissioners before we go to the audience?
Mr. Chairman.
And yes, Commissioner Clark.
I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today. I mean, we do here, as the Board of County Commissioners, take our constitutional rights very seriously, and the Second Amendment is one of those as it relates to the fact of responsible gun ownership. And I think it's been pointed out for those that spoke before me as it relates to making sure that we're responsible but still have the right to defend ourselves. So guns don't kill people, people kill people. So thank you for bringing those ideas and those thoughts forward.
We'll go to Commissioner Littleton and Commissioner Glenn.
Thank you. Just one more thought for today as we begin to hear from our citizens and residents. I don't think anybody here or anybody around the country would argue that we are in the middle of an unprecedented fight between liberty and tyranny, between freedom and control, between the Constitution and Washington. And the people's right to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment, is at risk, which is why El Paso County is the first county, as I understand it, in the nation to step up and say, we're not going to take it here. We're going to press forward with our unalienable rights.
Commissioner Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate those comments. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's very important. And I think it's important for other governing boards to take the same action that we're going to take today. I think that what we are trying to set the tone is that El Paso County, we are going to lead on issues when it comes to defending our Constitution, and I'm extremely proud of this board being able to take this proactive step to make sure that we fight for all of those rights, whether it's, you know, supporting one provision of the Constitution or another. I tell you, when you take that oath, you take an oath to defend the entire Constitution, and it's extremely important to be proactive and lead from the front. So I want to congratulate you for showing an interest of being out here today, but also congratulate this body by taking this proactive step.
Thank you. We will now go to the audience, and we'd like to hear from as many of you as would like to come to the mic. Who would like to be first? I would ask that you introduce yourself for the record, and if you have not already signed in, please sign in.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Roy. I'm the Executive Director of the El Paso County Republicans. If there was a competition tomorrow, my money would be on the women. I have 5 daughters. They could whoop you all.
We won't let you down.
I applaud this resolution. I've been a lifelong shooting enthusiast. My grandfather actually raised and supported his family as a market hunter on the Illinois River bottom. I grew up in that culture. I know the gun culture, if I might call it that. I've been a competitive shooter for 25 years, recreational shooter all my life. I was captain of the 1996 U.S. Olympic shooting team, chief operations officer for the USA Shooting Organization, which puts forward the Olympic team. I shoot and own rifles, pistols, shotguns, and many of them. I know the gun culture. Let me tell you just one small slice of that culture. I worked with and coached for many years young people, high school age kids and younger, in the shooting disciplines. These shooters, if I may call them that in the most positive way, are disciplined, high achievers, very familiar with goal setting, know how to or learn how to overcome adversity, how to win graciously, and they respect guns and they respect life. They are typically the best in their school, highest achievers, best grades, and so forth, highest achievers in their community, come from very strong families and build and grow into strong families, and grow up to be outstanding contributors in their society, in our society. The Second Amendment ensures that this marvelous phenomena that I've just described, and that's just one small slice of this gun culture, can continue. And I feel more safe, more free, and more blessed as an American here in El Paso County as a result of this resolution. Commissioners, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Good morning. My name is Charlie Aligain, A-L-I-G-A-E-N. I'm just a local activist in town, and I work as an artist as my trade. I just want to come here and applaud and thank you and appreciate the resolution that you guys have presented today. I just wanted to make mention that the Constitution is not the problem. It's upholding it, and I really do appreciate you guys passing this resolution. There's many times in history when a tragedy is used by the government for its political agenda to reduce the freedoms of the people. And it is important, no matter how bad the tragedy is, that we need to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, not only for the public officials that's elected, but for the citizens of this great country. My father worked his tail off to get us over here from the Philippines, and we saw the tyranny that was going on there under the Marcos rule. And I had the opportunity to grow up in this great free nation that my parents worked hard to get us over here. So I'm doing the best that I can. I'm here to support you guys to pass this resolution, to continue on and defend the Constitution and keep our freedoms alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Charlie, did you sign in?
I didn't know where to sign in was.
Oh, right there.
Good morning. I'm Scott Rand. I live in that little sliver of black forest under Commissioner Lathan's jurisdiction, and I'd also like to applaud your efforts this morning. You know, it doesn't bother me at all that they want to limit magazines to, not clips, magazines to 10 rounds. It doesn't bother me that they want to increase the background checks. Doesn't bother me in the least. What does bother me is the tendency that we see of them taking just a little bit here that makes sense, a little bit there. Oh, that sounds harmless, not a big deal. But after a period of time, you start looking back at it and you start saying, wait a minute. All of this taken together, one bit at a time, all of a sudden we have lost a good deal of rights. So to take a little bit of liberty with the quote, what have we wrought? Okay, a republic if you can keep it. And I applaud your efforts at keeping it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did our sign-in notebook make it back up there?
It's being passed around there, Chair.
Okay.
David Kelly, political activist, rebellious by nature, always politically incorrect. And I lead Liberty First here, Liberty Group, and I see a number of the folks who come. We don't have members truly. Most of the people come, believe in liberty, and they believe in the truth. The truth is this nation right now is being led by tyrants. The truth is I come from a long line of oppressed peoples that came to this continent well before the nation was birthed. And they used their right to bear arms well before we had that Second Amendment. And Peggy, you're absolutely correct. It is an unalienable right, and nothing will take that from me. Not a piece of paper, nothing. And I'm here today to say that we must fight, and I'm very proud to see El Paso County stand up and say, you know what? The buck stops here, and the federal government must understand that we, the people, have the right to bear arms and to protect ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel, can I get you to help me with this sign-in list? It seems to have gotten away from, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong clipboard there.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Laura Carno. I'm a resident of unincorporated El Paso County, longtime Second Amendment advocate, decades-long NRA member, and recent past board member of the Pikes Peak Firearms Coalition. You'll hear a lot about the constitutional applications of this resolution today, but I'd like to take a little bit of a different twist to it, the practical application, and why I support Commissioner Littleton's resolution. Many years ago, I was a victim of an assault. And in the wrapping up of that and in the aftermath, I made a decision that I will never again be a victim. And one of the things that I did to keep myself from ever being a victim is decide to become a firearms owner. And when I look at state or federal agencies trying to put restrictions on my ability to protect myself. I ask, will that actually work? And we need to look no further than the Australian gun confiscation of 1997, where all of the citizens were required to turn in certain firearms. And in the years following that, every single category of violent crime went up, from home invasions, rapes, murders, everything. The things that happen in the sanctity of our homes. And when I look at statistics and how they would affect me personally, the likelihood of me facing an assailant is that that assailant is going to be bigger than me. And we all remember the days when they said, well, women use rape whistles or use mace. And those kinds of things, thank you for the input, but those sorts of things are not going to be that great equalizer that I need if an assailant outweighs me by 100 pounds. I want the confidence that I'm going to be able to protect my life. So I urge all of you to support this. I urge a unanimous vote to send the message that we in El Paso County believe in the Second Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning to you all. I'm Bob Adelman. I live down in the Cobblestone area, south end of town. I come to applaud you and congratulate you and tell you that your timing couldn't be better. I especially want to encourage you to vote unanimously for this. I can't, in the wildest stretches of my imagination, understand why anybody would not support such a resolution. I always find it interesting that when an event like Newtown or Aurora takes place, they ignore all the other places where events like that didn't take place because someone armed put a stop to it early. The solution always seems to be to take the guns away from the people who didn't have anything to do with the event. But I especially enjoy the last part of the resolution, that in addition to protecting, the board strongly urges the United States Senate to reject international treaties that will infringe on the Second Amendment rights of American citizens, including the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty and so on. I think it's appropriate that we and you address the risks imposed by the United Nations, not just on our Second Amendment rights, but other plans and programs to create a world totalitarian dictatorship. I refer specifically to Agenda 21 and other measures there. So I just come to applaud you and thank you and urge your support on this on a unanimous basis. A lot of the Second Amendment people, I want to remind you, have long memories when it comes to the Second Amendment. I am a freelance writer, and so I am expressing my First Amendment rights every day. But it's the Second Amendment that provides the insurance for the first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Clem Borkowski, resident of El Paso County in the city of Color Springs. I grew up in northern Indiana. We had somebody mentioned earlier, the gun culture. We grew up in the woods. We didn't have shooting ranges. We had woods. That's where you went. You left your house and you went into the woods. And the gun culture that I noticed were when friends would come from cities in town where they didn't have the access to firearms, where firearms became the novelty that they are. And I suspect when we champion gun ranges, as Commissioner Lathan did earlier today, if more people were at them, we would probably have a lot less gun violence, because I would imagine a lot of people who do commit gun crimes may be firing their first bullet ever. The resolution today, which I obviously support, and thank Commissioner Littleton for bringing forward before the Commission, is a step towards standing up against those who don't understand what the Second Amendment is and how it's been explained today is better than I won't even go into. There are a lot of statistics. I would imagine there should be some opposition in the audience today, because there always is. But statistical information can always be used one way or another. There are statistics that show that when concealed carry, for example, is readily available or has no barriers to entry, that crime in that community is statistically much lower than the rest of the country where it is not. There are study after study that shows that evidence, yet we don't hear about that in the news. There is countless events day after day where someone protects themselves because they have a firearm. As we heard earlier today, that they don't want to be a victim. So they've made the choice that this is how they're going to protect themselves. And choice is what this is about. Removing and allowing any other form of government, whether it be foreign body or whether it be presidential or Senate or congressional, to infringe those rights is something that the 10th Amendment is designed around. It's designed around states being able to stand up and say, this is not the constitutional way that America was founded. So I applaud you for standing up. I also urge you for a unanimous resolution, and probably on behalf of those who didn't ask for a unanimous vote, that they also would have wanted a unanimous vote, because it is that overwhelming decision as a county to stand up and champion this right. So thank you again for bringing forward the resolution, and I hope that you do vote unanimously.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Like everyone else, I commend you on what you've done here today. I think it's magnificent. I'm hoping that I've got a few charts to show. I'm not sure.
Can we get your name?
My name is Mark Sabin. I am a 4-year resident this time of Colorado Springs, have lived here a number of times in the past. I am an advocate of Second Amendment rights. And what I would like to talk to you today a little bit about, and I'm going to whip through a bunch of charts. I'm not going to read all the words on the charts, but I want to get some thoughts across. And I think they will very much be consistent with the comments that you've heard, so I don't need to dwell on them tremendously. There are 3 main points that I would like to make. One is this unalienable right, and thank you for the pronunciation, Peggy, is steeped in history. There are many who say we had these white, bigoted founders who didn't know what they were doing and decreed this upon us. That is patently false. There are over 2,000 years of history behind what the founders wrote in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The truth of the current situation in terms of guns has been articulated by a few, and I will show you a little bit of data. It is absolutely true that the more guns we have in the society, the politer it becomes, the lower the rates of crime where people have ready access. And lastly, it is a threat, and the threat must be countered, and it's not just to the Second Amendment. We see it in terms of threats to the First Amendment, particularly attempts to control the internet. You can find sources far back in history. In fact, first one on this chart is a Chinese emperor who recognized that taking the ability to have arms away from the people was a threat to their liberty, a threat to their freedom. Cicero, Machiavelli, Suarez from the University of Salamanca in Spain was an eminent first writer, very creative individual in terms of international law, recognized self-defense as, quote unquote, the greatest of rights, a part of natural law that pre-existed, the Constitution pre-existed the foundation of the United States itself. A couple of other people, Montesquieu, Beccaria in Italy. English law itself, from which much of our heritage comes. Anglo-Saxon law forbade anyone to disarm a free man. We maintain that we are free people, free men and women in this nation. We shall not be disarmed. The Declaration of Rights in 1689 reestablished the rights of Protestants in England to have arms to their defense. And I would just point out that in England at the time, the law was that you had to have arms, not only for your own defense, but defense of the realm. And therein lies the concept of the militia. Blackstone is an eminent legal scholar, referenced many, many times throughout history. The colonists were very familiar with him, but as you can see in this particular chart, a natural right of resistance and self-preservation that exists. It exists without the authority, without the privilege provided by any government. No government can take it away. It is unalienable. He defined 3 primary rights, which we assumed here in the United States are our fundamental rights: personal security, personal liberty, personal private property. Without those rights, we are essentially doomed as a free nation. What was recognized by Blackstone were that it were auxiliary rights. Get that straight. Brushed my teeth this morning, I can't talk. Rights that were essential to the preservation of these primary rights, one of which was the natural right of self-defense. In the early United States, the colonies, the founding fathers well understood this history, an understanding that I find sadly lacking in the body politic and in the government today. We have people who don't understand what goes on in society, what a free people means. In our government today, in the Congress, in the executive, very important. I would call your line to the bottom line. The Bill of Rights was a commitment to safeguard rights, and both the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists recognized this, and they all agreed that those rights should never be infringed. You've seen many of these quotes before in terms of what Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, John Adams, Sam Adams, George Mason, George Washington, all these people, what they had to say. But it was clear, despite the denials of those who had banned guns, that the intent of the Founding Fathers was what they wrote in that Second Amendment. They wrote what they meant, and they meant what they wrote. And they knew what they wrote because they understood the history, they understand government, they understood the foibles of the human nature. They meant what they said, and free people must have the right to defend themselves. It was mentioned, just briefly, the Second Amendment today, in addition to the legal proceedings on the Supreme Court that were mentioned, there have been many lower-level court decisions in recent years that have supported the rights of individuals, and in terms of the Second Amendment, the ability to own and possess firearms. One individual mentioned data, particularly Laura, in terms of the effects on violent crime. I am a strong believer in the analysis that was performed by Professor John R. Lott at the University of Chicago. And these data are from his book, More Guns, Less Crime. And all you need to understand about this picture is the line in the center represents the implementation of concealed carry laws in various states throughout the nation. He has analyzed every state in the Union over 30 years. And what that chart shows is that after the ability of people on a shall issue basis to have access to firearms in their defense, every category of violent crime has gone down and gone down precipitously. Talking about cars, this is analogous to the chart that Commissioner Latham showed. And the point is, you can see on that chart where gun deaths lie. It's interesting that just the other day, a senior representative in the Obama administration said that among their priorities this year were gun control and immigration reform. I would submit that it seems to me economic stability, security, and jobs ought to be a much higher priority for this administration. Some people may criticize Lott's findings, but 12 of 13 recent studies, refereed studies, found out that what he said was right in terms of the effect of having gun availability on the crime rates in various municipalities, states, and across the country. The liberal community has tried to refute him. They've never succeeded, though they do castigate him. Now, in the future, why do we need to be concerned about this? Throughout history, and I believe the gentleman just before me, Clem, mentioned the issue of tyrants. In fact, several people have mentioned tyrants. Throughout history, tyrants have always sought to disarm the population. You go back as far in history as you wish to go. The Chinese emperor from before the birth of Christ recognized the threat that proposed or portended for his people. History of genocide, atrocities performed by governments with tyrannical intent continues to this day. And it is aided and abetted by the United Nations, as has been pointed out, with some of their activities where they seek to limit the access to guns. Getting close to closing, I would just like to say, in addition to the fact of all those things, we need to heed the words of those who speak. I love the line from the movie Patton, "Rommel, you bastard, I read your book," We need to read their book. We need to understand what these people say. You look at Rebecca Peters, a protege of George Soros. Look at the things she says. Can you believe it? Common sense dictates that guns do not make people or societies safer. Semi-automatic weapons are designed to kill large numbers of people. Rifles and shotguns have no legitimate role in civilian hands. Handguns have no legitimate role. These are the people that are driving the UN. They're driving other countries. They're driving the politicians in our country. Harold Koh, the chief legal advisor to the Secretary of State, believes we should adhere to international law, believes that human beings do not have a right to guns. It is incredible, and these are the people we must contend with. President Obama himself is tremendously misleading in his statements. He claims to be a supporter. His actions belie that claim. He has voted innumerable times in his career against the rights of people. It is terrible in what they do. So in closing, my last plea to you is continue this thrust and recognize that an armed man or woman is a citizen. An unarmed man or woman is a subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to be next?
Good morning, commissioners. Dennis, Peggy, Daryl, Amy, Sally. Call you by first names. I am Douglas Davis, because I know each of you. And you guys are in trouble with Peggy's shooting. I'm a NRA trainer and a range safety officer, chief range safety officer. I believe in the safe and responsible handling of firearms, and that's what I teach. Practically every month, twice a month. I'm Women on Target Director, and I would like to say that this body has supported that, and I'd like to report that we're full already for May. Thank you. I'm Pikes Peak Farm Coalition Legislative Chairman, so firearms and that support is no stranger to me. I'm not going to get into dittos on every speaker prior to me. And I applaud you, and I commend you, and I urge 100% support of Commissioner Littleton's resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. I'm Danielle Coleman. I'm a retired military officer and a homeschooling mom. So we're doing a civics lesson on how our government works today. I'm taking a tact on the days of our lives, the wannabe criminals of my life. There are 4 significant events that happened in my life where a gun changed the outcome. I grew up in Saigon, Laos and Vietnam, and we were there almost to the bitter end. And in those last days, lawlessness was on the rise, and gangs were roaming around the city of Saigon. And there was one that we knew was very ruthless, showed up at our house, and they were trying to breach the barbed wire fence in front of our home. And I remember my mom crawling on her stomach in the dark with the gun in her hand to get to the front of the house to get a better position to protect my sister, my brother, and I in the home. She let them know that she had a gun, and they left. In 1980, I was a teenager in Georgia. I was at home late at night. My mom picked my dad up late on Friday nights, and she let me know where the gun was. And we had glass doors at the back of our house, and the dog started growling at the back door. So I went and got the gun, and I pointed it at the door. I couldn't see what was out there because it was glass. It was reflecting the light on the inside. And whatever was out there left. In 1985, I was in college, and I lived in a trailer park. And I was sitting in my living room one evening when I heard a twig snap outside my window. And I realized I was at college. I didn't have any guns. My guns belonged to my parents. So I was able to sneak out the back door and run to a neighbor's home. And I watched this man circle my trailer, looking in the windows. And so the next day, I borrowed a gun from a friend, since I didn't have one. And he came back that next night. And so I stepped out onto the porch, and I fired a shot in the air. And I said, the next one will be directed at you. Leave me alone. And he did not come back. And the final event was when I was in military training. A couple of gentlemen in my apartment complex were always bothering me. So they would wait for me in the laundry room. So I always made sure I had my gun, because I bought a gun after the incident in college. And I made sure my gun was in the laundry basket, and I made sure they knew I was armed, and they left me alone. There are statistics that others have used guns with the same success. There's also a line that we hear today about how Europe is better than we are because they have really strict gun laws. And I was given these stats in England, where they do have some of the very strictest gun laws. You can see the violent crimes. People don't need guns to commit violent crimes. And the numbers are much higher, and we have 252 million more people than they do. So you can put that in perspective. And somebody else mentioned Australia. Here are some stats on what's happened in Australia since they confiscated their guns. I just wanted to say that infringement is an encroachment or trespass on a right or privilege. And that right or privilege was given to us in the Constitution. We've had many tragedies in our state and in our nation, but those tragedies are the result of a moral failure, not of the failure of people that own guns. And we can't find a solution to a moral problem this way. So I want to applaud this resolution. I also wanted to state that even though I used it for personal protection, the Second Amendment wasn't put in our Constitution so that we could hunt or use shooting ranges or even protect ourselves from the wannabe criminals. It was placed there, as others have explained much better than I can, because it guarantees the consent of the governed. And I was there in 1975, even to the 17th of April. Saigon fell on the 30th of April. My dad flew missions out of villages and towns, evacuating people before the communists overran their homes. And moms were throwing babies into the arms of strangers on the crowded airplanes because they knew they didn't have a chance of getting out, but they wanted a hope and a future for their kids. That was the devastation of an unarmed citizenry. In Israel, we went shortly after Rabin was assassinated, and we witnessed people everywhere with Uzis, subcompact machine guns slung over their shoulders, walking around. We felt completely safe because we knew if someone came up with a gun or anything else, they were going to be taken out. We even saw a young lady in a miniskirt with a machine gun on her shoulder, and we felt very comforted by that. And then in August of 2011, we were in the United Kingdom when the riots broke out. And it was amazing to see the violence done by people who were under the strictest gun laws. They were burning people's businesses. They were burning families out of homes. They were dragging people out of cars and severely injuring them. And the police, many of the police in England are not armed. They weren't doing much to help these people. And we were even so concerned because we were trying to plot our route to the airport to make sure that we were not going to go through those areas where we would be drug out of our cars before we got there. I'm just an American woman, and I'm a mom, and I hope that you will unanimously pass this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down.
Good morning, Commissioners. I truly have to say it is a pleasure to stand before you guys today and be in agreement with all 5 of you. It's a pleasure. I do hope you guys pass this unanimously also.
Can we get your name for the
Oh,
record?
sorry, Daniel Sopranovich,
Thanks,
sorry.
Daniel.
I spent 25 years, 2 months, 22 days, not that I counted, in the United States Army. They taught me how to fire a weapon. They kept me proficient, spent a lot of money doing that. In doing so, for anyone to try to hinder my ability to keep me proficient, to protect my family, or against the government that has gone rogue even, would be a travesty. And you all taking this up now is fantastic. Hit it head on directly, stop it before they try. Just real quick, I want to talk about the Supreme Court of the United States and the firearm ownership and carry is not a right to be impinged. They also said that voting is a right not to be impinged. I consider the two one and the same. You have these rights. You should place no more onerous restrictions on fire ownerships or anyone to carry than on voting. The same should be said. The Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm unconnected with the service in the militia and to use that arm for traditional lawful purposes. Interpretation of the Second Amendment by scholars, courts, legislatures from immediately after its ratification and through the late 19th century also supports the court's conclusions. Okay. Back in 1981, there was Warren versus the District of Columbia court case where they ruled that the police were not required to protect you. Basically saying they have police personnel and government employing them are not generally liable to victims of criminal acts for failure to provide adequate police protection. Government agents are under no general duty to provide public services such as police protection to any particular citizen. We need to protect ourselves, our families, our loved ones, and I definitely urge you to unanimously pass this. And just on a quick closing note, an armed society is a polite society. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Who would like to be next?
My name is Will Evans. I've lived in El Paso County my whole life. I want to thank you for passing this resolution. It's an exciting day, and thanks for knowing the power that you have, that the jurisdiction of law that we have in this county. The sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer. Thanks for passing this resolution.
Thank you. It's your turn.
Hello, I'm Dan Martin. I was out Saturday shooting. Could I have the PDF file or the PowerPoint file? There's supposed to be a way to work this. There we go. Yeah. Okay, I'll start here. I've got a lot of data on your disk back there. Some of it overlaps what you've heard here. It's all sourced. You can go right to it and get it verified. I'll leave that with you. I won't drag you through all of that here. I'll just hit some highlights if I can. These are 3 bills I wanted to mention that are being introduced by those state senators and the representative, Justin Everett. The bill, House Bill 1048 is particularly cogent. It allows a business to protect the business, and to protect its customers. If the government or a business insists on disarming its employees and its customers and its citizens, and insists on not taking any responsibility for their safety. I think that is not only criminal, not only wrong, but it is unethical and devious, and I can't think of a strong enough word to say that I can say in front of you here. This bill will fix some of that. Those other bills are very important too. You hear things, especially Snopes, you hear a fact-checking kind of thing. Just take a look at the spin technique number 3 down there, where there's been an email going around. Snopes analyzed it. It's criticizing the fact that in Australia, homicides have gone up 3.2%. Snopes is saying that, well, you've got an increase, but it's nothing to worry about, an increase in crime. This is the actual increase in crime taken from Australian, their counterpart to the FBI. Over those 3 years, 1996 is the base year, over those years, crime has gone up 21.6%. And those are assaults on people 65 and older. Okay? You've got a 21.6% increase of assaults on 65 and older. I'm approaching age 65, and a lot of us have loved ones at home who are age 65 and older. And when somebody tells me that over the past 3 years, the crime rate, the assault rate on 65 and older exceeds 21%, I get concerned. That's significant to me. If you ban guns, and this is taken from, again, the Australian data, 1997 is when they started confiscating the guns. You can see that the brown line or the dark line, the guns are no longer available, so the criminals aren't using guns.
Dan, the closer you get to that mic, the better the audience can hear you.
Oh.
We do pretty good, but thanks.
Okay, thank you. The darker line, as guns become less and less available, you can see that that many guns aren't used in the incidence of gun use in crimes goes down. But it also shows you that knives and other sharp instruments, those incidents, those weapons, their use goes up. This just is a demonstration in a situation that already happened where you disarm the populace and the criminals go to alternative weapons. They exist, they will be used. This one here I wanted to say to you, to show you and explain to you. This is a study done by, in 2005, so it's well after the gun confiscations. You can see that nearly 1 out of 9 households have experienced crime in the year 2005. Half of those crimes were break-ins. So you see the table down there, 1993, 8%, 1998, 9%. These are the years that this survey was conducted. 37% of the crimes occur where the people live, in their houses. 21% occur where people shop. 20% of those assaults occur in and around those 2 locations. So what this means is, if you've got people at home, while you're in a protected area, you've got people staying at home, 78% of the crimes, the serious crimes that occur on those where they are. And if they can't protect themselves, then they're just prey for the criminals. There you see, keep in mind, 1997 is when they started confiscating the guns. All the way to 2003, this has been several decades long, this trend. That crime rate just kept on going. Those violent crimes kept on increasing. It wasn't until 2003 before, in Australia, the criminal justice system started looking at alternative means for mitigating the risk instead, looking at the mental health issues, looking at the social issues. After 2003, the crime rate started coming down, but that's a long time, from 97 to 2003. And it wasn't, the guns were disappearing that whole time. On the right there, under the FBI, that's taken directly from the FBI stats. Decades-long period in Australia where crime was increasing. You see a decades-long period in the United States where crime rate is decreasing. Now, I could almost understand considering the consideration of perhaps infringing on somebody's rights if the crime rate is going totally out of control, if the crime rate is skyrocketing. But here in the United States, the crime rate has not been skyrocketing, it has been decreasing. And yet, that's what they're doing to us, is taking our rights away. Here it is by category of crime. Only one, notice, in 2011 versus 2010, this set of columns on the left, you can just see that one little sliver there where it's burglary rates that have increased year on year for that 1 year, 2010 to 2011. If you start taking the guns, if you disarm the population, you're gonna, that's an early indication that you'll end up very much like what Australia has with unsafe homes. Here's another way of looking at the FBI data. I took the crime per year. These are national figures. And I ordered them by number of crimes each year. And there you see the median. This is ranked by percentile. Notice that the lowest crimes occur in the years that begin with 2000. This century is in the least crime category, or least crime half of that graph. The higher per year crimes occur earlier. There's one other slide I want to bring to your attention, and it's this one here about concealed carry permits. Again, you go to the FBI's website and you download all of the data from that they have in Excel files that's downloadable. And you see that per year, on average, there's 14,000 murders in the country, okay? And 2/3 of those, 67%, are produced by firearms. Firearms are involved in them, okay? Now, let's break down that 2/3, because what that really means on the flip side is 1/3 is non-firearm. Of those firearms, let's move over to the right-hand side. The percent of murders committed with handguns is half of the entire set of murders, the entire set of firearm murders. Half the firearms were handguns. 2.8% of the firearms used in a murder, 2.8% were rifles of all types. Assault rifles, every rifle, only 2.8%. Fewer murders are committed with rifles than they are with shotguns. Okay? Now, it's no, you look at that and you ask yourself, well, why did the assault weapons ban fail? Because they targeted a subset of the rifles. Okay? It didn't have anything to do with handguns. And so 2.8% of the rifles, they targeted a subset of that, and that was only 2.8% of the 2/3 of the murders. They're focusing on the wrong thing. They need to focus on the social problems. We need laws and studies and mechanisms for dealing with the social problems, not guns. Guns don't kill. It's the people that use the guns in crimes that kill. So thank you very much. I'll leave you with the rest of it. There's a lot of information left on the slides there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Who would like to be next?
My name is Rodney Howe. I'm a resident of Colorado Springs, 18 years. I started a small group called Believers Bear Arms from a church group. And little did I know that I started a Facebook page and that I would have over 1,600 people look at the postings through the United States in 20 different countries in about 19 different languages. So there is definitely an interest of what's going on. It further boggles my mind that with the publicity of Sandy Hook, which we are so incredibly in a heart-sick situation of our schools, it's interesting that we note in most press of any shooting the type of gun, the number of guns, the name of the guns, when probably they little to know what a Bushmaster is a product, let alone just an AR-15 rifle, and then to mislabel it. It's interesting to see the overwhelming research in these mass shootings of pharmaceutical drugs that are involved in this. I encourage that we as a government and a society and in our area to further research and to further do something about the situation of pharmaceutical that's involved in these shootings. I have research, there is research out there that shows that. I'll be glad to submit that. Furthermore, I am very involved in and I think that everybody wants the resolution. They're in support of this. But further than this, to have that right is to have the right and that responsibility to be well trained. And I commend Sheriff Makita in getting involved in this. I think with the new range, I think we should promote not only a basic training, but further advanced trainings. My wife and I have decided to go out to a 4-day school in Las Vegas with Front Sight and to get well trained, because not only is it our right, but is to know and when not to use legal force. And I encourage that as a body, that we do that. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Cindy Lyons. I'm a staff sergeant in the Army Reserve's current drilling. The first thing a soldier does, or anybody in the military, is they affirm or swear an oath. And that oath entails to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Part of the domestic threat is from politicians. They are the greatest threat to our Second Amendment and the rest of the Bill of Rights. And I really am excited to participate in this historic defense that my oath is entailed me to do as well. And I can promise, and I would implore anybody in the military or anybody that's sworn an oath not to participate in any gun confiscation, not to participate in registration, not to turn in your weapons, because that is unconstitutional. And one of the things as a soldier I'm taught is not to obey an unlawful order. I won't obey an unlawful order if it's the Constitution, and that's what I'll defend. And I'm implored by my oath to do that, and I would encourage anybody else in the military and the politicians to do that. The Constitution starts off with, "We the people of the United States have created and agreed to this Constitution for the United States of America. We have done this in order to make our union stronger, set standards for justice, keep the peace at home, provide for our common defense, promote our general well-being, and make sure that the blessings of liberty continue for ourselves and for our descendants. It is upon not just those who sworn an oath, it is upon every single citizen in this nation and in this county to do the same. You don't have to swear an oath. You are a citizen. The Constitution is for everyone. And I encourage everyone within the sound of my voice to read the Constitution. I also would like them to read the Declaration of Independence out loud to themselves. And I think once they do, they'll see the dangers that we are surrounded with. And I am in great admiration of the county commissioners today being in such a historic thing. I feel like I'm a part of history. And that's exciting as a soldier and as a citizen of this county, and I'll be hard to want to ever move. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. I am Gwen Shermack. I am the Colorado field rep for the National Rifle Association, and I do not live in El Paso County, although I grew up here, and it is near and dear to my heart. But I got up at 4 o'clock this morning to be here with you to tell you that the National Rifle Association says bravo. Well done. Kudos to you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for writing the wording. Well done. And keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak this morning?
Hi, my name is Marie Vernarski, and I live in Canyon City. I just came to observe today, so I didn't bring any statistics or any printouts or any PowerPoints, okay? Just the idea that I wanted to thank you guys. I came down when you passed the resolution against the National Defense Authorization Act, and you started that, and I was really proud to see that it came from at least a neighboring county and from Colorado. And today I'm very proud to say that I'm proud of you guys for doing this too. I just wanted to add a couple things that gun registration and gun regulation are the first steps to gun confiscation. And that is something we need to avoid. And the Second Amendment is our first defense in defending every other right that we have. And without that, we are open to having everything taken from us. So I would just like to thank you, and I do applaud you for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Seeing none, we will bring it back up to the board. I have not commented yet, but I don't believe anybody is in doubt about my vote on this. I grew up also in a gun culture, didn't know what a shooting range was. Like Clem, you took your gun, you went out in the woods, and you shot, and you had a good time, and you did it safely, and you did it with your friends, and that's just kind of the way it was. And I am proud to say that I have passed that on to my children. They're all proud and responsible gun owners themselves. Other comments? Commissioner Lathan.
Thank you. I know I said a few things before, but the comments have been just tremendous, and I've taken some notes and just want to make a few more comments on some of the things that have been said, and just my own personal passion and excitement. I am so excited and hopeful to see the passion in this room. Fear is not going to do any of us any good in these days that we are being tested and tried by those who seek to take our liberty away from us. It is fearful, but that's not going to get us anywhere, so we need to fight. Dan, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. Dan said that criminals will go to alternate means. They'll just find a way to do what they need to do, and that's true, except they won't go to alternate means. They'll just use guns because they're not going to hand them over. And so you get what I mean. The criminals, of course, if we go through all this process, of course the criminals will be the ones left with the guns. This is what brings me to the insanity of this whole thing to me. I cannot fathom the logic, the lack of logic of those who believe that we'll just legislate criminal activity out of our society. It doesn't work that way. And so there must be another reason, because logic simply does not explain it. Facts do not explain it. Statistics do not explain it. You cannot just make a law that says don't shoot somebody and somebody won't shoot somebody, or make a law that says everybody can only have 10 rounds in your magazine, and then everybody's going to obey that. I mean, it's pure insanity. And here's the thing, they all know it. It's not about that. It is about the power. That's what this whole thing is about. It is simply about the power. And when you look at what our president is doing, and those who support him, the likes of George Soros and many who have been mentioned here before, we are in danger from these people. My heart absolutely aches for liberty. and what's happening, but it will not stop fighting. I will fight, and I know everyone here will as well. I want to say thank you to our sheriff, and I've been stating this on the public record. We are blessed to have a sheriff who understands and believes in our Second Amendment rights and has fought for them and continues to fight for them. Thank him for agreeing to this resolution as well. All the people, there are people in this room who helped with this resolution, and I know who you are, and I'm thankful to you for all of your contributions to that, to make this a credible and enforceable resolution. I fear a little bit that our folks up in Denver at the legislature won't be listening to us, but we're gonna scream it loudly, and I hope and pray that we will not be the only board who will do this. We will stand firmly for this. I don't think there's ever been a question that this will be a unanimous vote, but we will stand firmly, and we don't want to stand alone. We want to see everybody come on board with this type of action, that we can stand and fight against this, because there's too much at stake. So to everyone here who has spoken, who has contributed to this, to our sheriff, to my colleagues, my deepest thanks. We will fight very, very hard, not only for the people of El Paso County, but we hope that this will spread and that people will stand up and understand the truth of liberty. I'm excited. So thank you to all of you.
Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amy brings up a good point. I wanted to make sure there were many constituents, many citizens that are in this audience that helped draft the language of this. And so to you, I am grateful. In addition, Dave Copel from the Independence Institute, who is a scholar on the Second Amendment, was also one of those who helped inform, including some of those in the audience, of our unalienable rights that we have. I wanted to go back just a little bit to a couple of comments that were made. So, Doug, I want to thank you for affirming my shot capability, because I'm telling you, once I learned how to use a weapon, it was a game changer in our house. That's for sure. I no longer had to argue about vacuuming or taking out the trash. So, going back to refer to one of the rulings on McDonald versus the City of Chicago, and if we go to Section 3, it gives us very implicitly some rights that we have, and I think one of the way that it ends in Section 3 is so poignant for us to consider this morning. The rights of the citizens to keep and bear arms has justly been considered as the palladium of the liberties of a republic, since it offers a strong moral check against the usurpation and arbitrary power of rulers, and will generally, even if these are successful in the first instance, enable the people to resist and triumph over them. What a great ruling McDonald versus the City of Chicago is, back in June 28th of 2010. Also wanted to let you know that the sheriff had a circumstance that he could not make it this morning, and he apologizes, but certainly refers people to his website where he has posted a letter in his support of this, where he's saying that he absolutely believes in and stands firmly against any effort that would infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens to own and possess firearms of their choice, and that he will actively oppose any effort that infringes upon the Second Amendment rights of the citizens of El Paso County. I wore my button hoping this morning he would be here, but something called him away. I'm hoping that he would deputize citizens. And for those businesses that are located throughout our country in states where they might not have gun laws that are as amenable to this, or a sheriff that doesn't want to stand up to those that might want to infringe upon their rights, we welcome those businesses here. Come manufacture your bullets here, make your guns here. We'd love to see El Paso County be a mecca for that type of a business. So come on in, you're welcome. We want you to be here. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one last comment. I just want to assign a homework assignment, because I guarantee you we will receive some level of criticism for taking this bold action. And while I support people's First Amendment right to criticize us to do that, I would encourage people in this room to monitor the media, all forms, and be vocal about the fact that it is very important that we do actions just like this to defend our Constitution. So that's my homework assignment.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to say one of the things that the president has said I'm going to agree with. And so don't just bear with me here for a moment. One of the things that's called for is to create, and I just got this from the White House in a newsletter, to create a safer climate at schools across the country, including putting up to 1,000 new school resource officers and school counselors on the job. That has to do with the mental health issue that we're also dealing with in our country. And I think that's where the focus needs to be, not on stopping the ability for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves against criminals. Criminals will carry weapons of all kinds without going through background checks and the things that are being required of law-abiding citizens. So what I agree with in terms of the president's plan is creating safer schools, is creating a safer environment for all of us by paying attention to what's happening to individuals and making sure that we are able to provide the resources they need when it comes to mental health issues. That being said, this board has always supported the National Rifle Association. We've done consistently, every year I've been on this board, we've done resolutions every year as it relates to their fundraising efforts for education of firearms. We've also supported the amicus brief, which would have created, if it was successful, created laws across Colorado that would make it consistent in terms of our concealed carry permits and laws, whereas Denver is different than the rest of the state, which makes it problematic. But I guess what I'm saying in this is that, and I said it before, and a lot of you have said this as well, that the guns don't necessarily kill the people, but those law-abiding citizens have a right to be able to defend themselves, and we need to make schools safer. But I don't think that banning guns is going to make schools safer. I think that by providing the necessary resources and understanding why people do what they do will help ultimately. So I appreciate you all being here today, and I look forward to supporting this resolution to uphold the Second Amendment and support keeping our community safe by allowing law-abiding citizens to have firearms. Thank you.
Commissioner Littleton, it's your resolution. We will give you the final comment before we call the roll.
Thank you. Not really necessarily a comment, but I did want to say that I just received a text from Sheriff Mack, who many of you know and are aware of, that works and directs the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Wishes he could have been with us this morning. He sends his congratulations to this body for stepping out and being the first ones in the nation to put forth this kind of a resolution, and wholeheartedly wants you guys to know that he supports us, he's proud of us, and thanks us for being bold and brave.
And with that, we will call the roll. Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Lathan.
Very excitedly, yes.
Commissioner Glenn.
Easiest vote, aye.
For freedom, aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Let's get with anybody who wants.
I think we'll get a group picture with everybody kind of moving to the center section here. If you want to come over and sit in the center section, we'll do a picture of this
if you would like to be part of the photo, just come into this center section.